Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to my first episode of Dennis's Bookcase Museum. This is Charlie Cat that you, if you follow my channel, you've heard of quite often, and I wanted to introduce him to those of you who haven't. He's the brains behind everything, and he's my best friend. So, what I'd like to do tonight is I'm going to talk to you about Spindle Whorls. But first, what is a bookcase museum? What is what it sounds like. It's a museum and a bookcase, or bookcases, as the case may be. I used to have several large buildings up in Oscoda and Greenbush, Michigan, in which I had my collection of artifacts. At that time, mostly were ones that I found myself, Native American, and we'll get into that in a future episode. But I live in an apartment now in Saginaw, Michigan, and it's a large apartment, 3 stories, basement, first floor, living room, dining room, and kitchen. Dining room is where we are, and this is where my bookcase museum is. And there's 3 rooms upstairs and a full garage. But all of that is neither here nor there. But the thing is that even in a small space, you can have your own personal private museum. And that's what I've done here, although I share it with a lot of people, and now I'm hoping to be able to share it with all of you. So, in my collection there are Indian artifacts, mostly that I've found. There's Michigan history, Michigan postal history, United States postal history, world stamps, pre-Columbian South American artifacts. There's, I think you can see behind me, there's some ironstone back here. I have a nice collection of ironstone that was dug out of the Saginaw River that goes back to the lumbering era here in the 1870s, 80s, and 1890s. But this video tonight, I wanted to do, and oh yeah, and a lot of Bible history too, because I love the history of God's Word. So, anyways, I want to get on with this about the Spindle Whorls, and so I'll be back with you in a minute. I'm sorry, I have to do this unprofessionally because I'm going to have to stand up to pause the camera, and I apologize for that, but the person I was going to use as cameraman could not make it tonight. Thank you, and I'll be right back with you. So, what are Spindle Whorls exactly? These are 2 examples in my collection. These are from pre-Columbian South America. A lot of people nowadays also use them as beads. But you'll notice on these ones, I hope you can see that there's a design etched into the surface there, and also another design on this one etched into the surface. Spindle whorls, though, they're one of several tools that were used by textile producers, and it is an artifact that is just about universal in its form as we humans make them. They were used across the world. And a spindle whorl generally is a disc-shaped object with a hole in the center, as you can see here, and it is used in the ancient art of making cloth. The presence of a spindle whorl on an archaeological site is an indication of the technological advance of textile productions called spinning. Now, I've done here in northern Michigan, I've done a lot of archaeological work, and mostly late woodland, but also middle and early woodland, a little bit of archaic too. But I've never found a spindle whorl here. But now that I'm doing this video and thinking back, there are a couple pieces that could qualify. I know the people of northeast Michigan in the late woodland did make cordage, because you can find the cordage impression in pottery shards. Just a minute, I'll grab a couple and show you. Here are a couple volumes from my bookcase museum, and these are of artifacts from the old Annette Creek site up in Oscoda, Michigan. Now, as I look into this first volume, and this is how a lot of the displays in my bookcase museum are set up. They're in old books, and then I build, a box that's just really of cardboard. You can use whatever material you want, and then I use it to house artifact collections. But we're going to look at and get these out of the way. For example, this particular piece, you can see that there's cord impressed into it. So we know that the Native Americans at that time, here in Michigan, late woodland, were weaving, whether it was just simple finger weaving or with the use of a spindle and whorl, is not something that I personally can say definitely happened and prove it. But you'll notice here the cord marks in the pottery. Now I have another volume here, same site, and I have my write-up about the items in this particular collection on the front of the book. And opening this one, you'll see more pottery and a few stone tools, but this particular piece, you can see the cordage quite profoundly. And then not so much on the other pieces that I have in here. And I only bring that up to show that that we were doing here in Michigan weaving work, but I don't think we had reached the technological level of using the spindle whorl. The spindles didn't always have the ornamentation etched into the sides. Sometimes it was they were flat, and they would have design marked on the tops. But I've seen many from South America, pre-Columbian, are like this, with the design on the side. Now, I'm kind of thinking, and this is just a off-the-wall idea, that I don't know if I have the ability to prove it or not, but the Native American people of South America actually did a lot of printing on cloth, and they used stamps that had a repetitive pattern to make their impression, or to leave their impression on the cloth. And I was thinking of these spindle whorls from there, because they could easily have been set in the damp clay, or not the damp clay, excuse me, the cloth, inked first with whatever was used, and on a spindle could be rolled across it and leave the pattern on the material. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but these particular spindle whorls are about 500 to 700 years old and are again from South America. So to see if they could be used for that purpose, I bought a package of mold magic clay from Crayola. This doesn't require any firing like polymer clays do. It air dries, and I'm going to set up a little test here with this to see if indeed it could have been used. These could have been used as a stamp per se. So let me get this all set up, and I'll be right back with you. I've never used this kind of clay before, but I've got a small shallow plastic lid off a container, and let's move these over here for a minute. Here comes Charlie Cat. And what I want to do is just take enough, almost has the consistency of dough, and I want to fill this tray with it, and I guess just keep pressing it in and smoothing it together so that it blends and there's not an uneven mark there. One thing I don't know if you can notice on here or not is the dirty fingerprints, because prior to this I was working with some pottery that had not been cleaned, and so hence the dirty fingerprints. Now if I can get a nice somewhat smooth surface here, we will be able to see if my theory would work. Okay, I'm going to take this one first, and I'm going to lay it right here on the clay, press it in, and press it down as I roll it across, hopefully leaving a design there. And I'll do the same with the other one, pressing it in and rolling it across. It would work better if it was on a spindle, but indeed it does leave an impression that makes me believe this could have been used not just as a spindle whorl, but as a stamp. I'm trying to get this so you can maybe see. I don't know if you can see the impressions real well, but the impressions are there. And if this was a darker material, it probably would work better. But they only had white. So, okay, we know that from this that these could have been used as a device to leave impressions on material. And this has a nice triangular impression, and then these little backwards 6 type squiggles on it, which is really cool. And this one, I hope I can get all that off from it. I'm sure I can. Has a more complex design. I noticed also both of these have designs on the top of them too, and on the bottom, whichever it is, top and bottom. Anyways, spindle whorls were a great advancement in the technological work of man, and as I said, it seemed to appear simultaneously across the world. There were ones made out of fired clay, as here, out of wood, out of bone, out of ivory, out of glass in ancient Rome. And so that's the story that I have to tell you about the 2 spindle whorls that are here in my collection. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and God bless.